Okay, so how are you guys doing? I've been reading some pamphlets. Looks like you're feeling pretty all right about most of the stuff. Any questions, any comments, any concerns on your end?
Yeah, I have a question
Mm-hmm.
that regards the muscle and the skull test. Is
Okay.
it? Yeah. So, do we? Because I was starting to watch the videos, the lab videos that you sent us a link to sometime, I think
Mm-hmm.
last week.
Mm-hmm.
And do we have to first review those ones before we take the test? Because no.
No, no, you don't. This is I think I tried to mention it in the text. It's just more detailed stuff that I start getting into for people who, for people who are interested in it, because I talk about technical things, connections, the way I see itself, I see my office and so forth.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do that, but I have a bunch of people, a massage therapist, who want to go to PT and so forth, and for them, or simple who just people are a little nerdy. It's interesting. Plus, it deepens the knowledge of it, and it makes it easier to remember things after you apply it more. But
Okay.
it's not mandatory. Ultimately speaking, none of the videos are mandatory. Of course, we get to the material, but so much stuff is repetition. Keep that in mind, as you don't have to feel obligated to watch everything. What I have in the lecture videos and then in the class videos, or also in the integration videos as it comes to the quizzes or the questions, if you watch one of those sets, you should be fine in terms of baseline. And then you can go deeper in the things that you don't maybe understand. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And since I'm on that, let me just keep expanding on that. Where am I? Hold on. Safari. Sorry. Let me. Oh boy. Because I want to just then keep expanding and seeing how show you what I really want you to understand. Because if you then go further into test 3 here at the end, there's no test 4. Um, and you go to the review, and you go to this first test review, and you open that. In here, you get all the parts in writing that I really want you to understand ultimately for the final test. And so you can basically, watch a video and look through these things and make sure you understand all of those bullet points, and then that's your baseline. And of course, depending on your interest, you can keep going and keep learning more about it. But that's your baseline. And so, oops, sorry about that. And so if you know that after you watch the videos, then you got yourself covered well. But you also, Julie, were sort of talking about the test too, basically. So on that note, that what I've graded so far looks really good. So you guys are doing very well. And just to reiterate, if you haven't taken it, you don't need to know an origin, an insertion, or an action on the muscles. All you need to know is be able to label and be able to point which muscle is what. So you go with that term list that I have under test to review on that front. But everything looks pretty good from the people that I have taken it and that I graded. I'm really very impressed, and it's looking it's good, and it's open till till the 16th, I think. So you guys have this whole week still to go through it.
Okay, so can you shed more light about the final test? We're
Yeah,
gonna,
what would you like to know? Format?
huh? The
What would
format
you
and how we're gonna take it. Yeah.
So the format is here we go, the overview. This is the review. So the format is 65 questions, 25 of them are the material on the review sheets, which are these sheets that I just showed you, the bullet points. And then
Yeah.
the other ones are anatomy kind of terms
Yeah.
are on this list, which is like test 2. And then
Mm-hmm.
this term list, as you accumulate the terms, we did the heart. Sorry, it takes a moment. We did the heart, we did the blood. Now we get to the brain. The brain's pretty extensive, and then this week is all the way down through the ears to the lungs. So this is a pretty long list here that you go through. But again, you go through the labeling and the coloring, and then on the final you have the list to choose the terms from. And actually, on the final, the terms, I can tell you that now because to ease you off a little bit at this point, even the anatomy terms is a multiple choice format. It's not, you don't have to type it in on that one, on the final. On the second test, you have to type it in. You have 2 hours for the exam, which should be plenty for people. If that is a concern to you, just reach out to me. I have no problem giving you extra time. I really want this to be sort of a final go through the material and say, like, check off things that you've learned, and sort of a final go through and study session, sort of. What else do we need to know? What else would you like to know about this, Julie?
That's basically it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely, that's good. That helps me too. It covers me too. And I want to just reiterate, as I get through the Padlets, I try to answer most of them. I'm trying to finish the grading on those today so far. But make sure, even if you're behind and you haven't done it and you wanted those points, you can still go back and do that. And I go back and look at them as well. I know it's a little weird, but potentially, but if you want to get those points and you missed it, don't feel like it's all finished. I have those open, so I'm not worried if you're a little late on that. The same is true for the discussions. If you haven't replied to anyone and you haven't gotten those extra 5 points, and you go like, oh God, what can I do to bring the grade up a little? You can go in there and do that. And then I go in as well. You can text me. That helps sometimes for me to go and check, but I'll also check once or twice a week who changed their answers a little bit or changed their replies. And then I'll give you the points. So don't feel like those things are finished, like traditionally speaking, when the time is up. I keep them open, especially during the summer.
Okay, so for the extra 5 points, you haven't graded any, right?
No, I do go back. I haven't gone back in the last 3-4 days, but I plan on going back today and see who replied back. But basically, in the discussions for first week, you want to have your own post, your initial post, and then you want to read some peers and reply to some peers back.
Okay, so
that gives you the second 5 points.
The thing with me is that during my first discussion, the 5 extra points, I did comment something, but I did not include my name, so it stays anonymous.
No, that's on the Padlet, right?
Oh,
not on the discussion. Yeah, the Padlet. No, the Padlet I'm not so concerned about. I do check who participates, and that just give you 5 points. I was more talking about the replies in the discussion. Those
for the all right.
Those are more structured that way, and I can keep more track of that. Yes.
All right, got it. Thank you.
So that's for that So this week you guys are gonna go through the brain if you haven't done so yet. I think the brain is a very the brain and the nervous system, of course, but the brain nervous system is pretty complex and complicated, and it's a lot of structures that we sort of like learn what is what, and we learn what part does what. The frontal cortex here does this part, the one behind the ear, the temporal, does the hearing, etc. So you go through it. It's not as cohesive of information maybe as a cardiovascular system, and it's extremely complicated, and we just don't know all of the connections. And of course, by the time they seep into the textbooks, it's been a while, so we do know much more. But a lot of studies are ongoing, so it's really a much more in progress situation than other systems that way. One of the things that I really appreciate heavily about the nervous system, besides which part is doing what and which part is doing what, actually parts that do something can take over other parts tasks. So for example, there was a person who had the equilibrium problem, like vertigo, serious vertigo, and they actually then used the tongue, the taste buds, to redirect the equilibrium by having different sensations, or the tongue, not the taste buds themselves, but having different sensations brought to the tongue depending on where the head was, and so they would then not be dizzy anymore, and so the brain got redirected. So there's a lot of what we call plasticity to the brain, and so that's where I think one of the most interesting parts in the brain is this neuroplasticity concept. so we can grow connections. And so the concept really is two things. One is, yeah, it's important where parts are in the brain, like the frontal cortex does this, the parietal does this, etc. But what's really, really important is the connections between all the nerves together. And so the connections between them are sort of the pathways that the nerve information, the thoughts travel. And then that's one thing that's very important. And actually, we do have some studies that indicate that dementia, Alzheimer's is really a lack of the connections. So the information is still present, like the memory, but we can't access it anymore. And so that's just a little side note on that. But then the second part that's interesting about these connections to me is that neuroplasticity thing is like, the more we use a pathway, the more we use one of those connections, the stronger that connection becomes. And that's the concept of neuroplasticity. And I have that in the booklets here, as we have a pathway that a nerve, a thought that travels through neurons. These are neurons, nerve cells. The more we use that pathway, the stronger it gets, because it feeds back and reverberates on itself and makes it stronger. And then that creates, one thought, but then it creates big, strong pathways that are easily accessed again. And that can be something as in, positive or negative. And that's where, when we want to be look into gratitude, for example, we look into happiness. A lot of people, I think, want to be happier, or that's at least something that people have a goal of. And one pathway to get there is to strengthen the positive pathways, and that's through the gratitude. And in the longer semester, I do a gratitude journal where every day for 5 days you write down, or the students write down 5 things that they really appreciated that day and that are grateful for that day. If you have the booklets, you have it in there as an exercise. And I also have a TED Talk associated with it, and that is wherever I have that TED Talk. Let me see. I have it here somewhere. I pulled it up. This guy, want to be happy, be grateful. This guy is a priest who went to Africa where the water wasn't coming out of the fountain every day. And he was like, when it came out, he's like, oh my God, look at the water comes out. And then we went back to Austria. And after a few weeks, he was like, just normal that the water comes out. And he wasn't having any extra happy thoughts anymore. It was just natural, and realized that if he can keep up that, happy thought about the water coming out, his whole outlook on life is happier and better. And so he talks about that. So that's something that we go through a little bit more during the regular semester, because it's one of those things that I feel like is tangible in the brain discussion, other than just sort of like what piece is what piece. And then as we go further in the chapters, and we get to the spinal cord, and we get to the pathways, and so there we also then talk about nerve energy going into the system and then nerve energy going out of the system. So that's back when we get to that negative feedback loop kind of discussion in the neurology lab. Anyway, that's about what I wanted to say. I think not too much, but I just wanted to point out that part about the neurology. Anything that you guys have to share, or questions that come up while I talk about it? If not, we don't need to keep you on. I can stay on if somebody wants to talk privately a little bit, but other than that, we can close it out and have us another week. You guys good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. And it's really enjoyable grading your work. You guys, a lot of you fantastic stuff. So keep it up. All right, good.